Welcome to Prasad Pod. I'm your host, Jarrell Prasad.
And I'm Paul Campbell.
So today we got a couple things to talk about with the trade wars going on right now. The U.S. is implementing tariffs on about 182 countries, and that has been started by Donald Trump as a retaliation for the tariffs that are already imposed on our country by these other countries. So we're going to get into that, and then of course we're going to wrap up with the topic with today's election with our favorite topic, XRP. So let's go ahead and get into it. Go ahead, Paul, and share your screen.
All right. So today we are talking about the trade wars. And so far, everybody is freaking out about the tariffs. So, which is understandable. The stock market collapsed a huge amount. But I just wanted to kind of put things in perspective. So this is something that's been floating around online. This was back on March 11th, 2025. This was posted, right? So let's see what it says. And then we wanted to kind of discuss the why behind why the stock market is going down, why there's all this volatility in the market. So it goes like this. Trump is trying to crash the stock market at least 20%, causing a flight into treasuries. This will cause the Fed to slash interest rates so he can refinance the debt to near 0% and cause a deflationary spiral which will lower the cost of everything. He also intends to use tariffs as an incentive for companies to build in the U.S. to avoid having to pay them. The tariffs and the resulting global trade war will also force American farmers to sell more of their goods in the U.S. due to retaliatory trade measures by other countries, which will directly lower the price of groceries in the U.S. More than 94% of all stock is owned by just 8% of the U.S. population. I'm going to say that one more time. More than 94% of all stock is owned by just 8% of the U.S. population. Trump is literally taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. This is why Trump is playing a game of hokey pokey with tariffs. One day he has 25% tariffs on Mexico, and the next he doesn't. This is to cause extreme volatility in the markets and a desperate need and demand to flee towards treasury bonds, which are much more stable but offer much lower potential return. This is why eggs are cheaper now than they were under Joe Biden. So a lot to digest there. We're talking about investments, the stock market, and the 1% specifically. I think it's really, really funny or ironic, which is irony is in and of itself hilarious at times, that all the people that are screaming about, stopping the 1% and how evil all of these super rich people are now freaking out because we're stopping the coordinated control that they have over over everything. But right now we're focusing on the markets, right, on the economy. So the same people are saying, eat the rich. Well, Elon's going, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. And Elon had a ground roots, came up. The left loved him when he was coming up because of his electric vehicles. And now, hey, Elon's saying some Congress members are suspiciously getting very wealthy. And all of a sudden the left is freaking out. Leave them alone. The very people that are the most, corrupt people in government are the ones that are going to get exposed. So yeah, it's very ironic crazy what's going on.
It's crazy that these people that are elected officials to government office making no more than 200K a year salary at max, they're multimillionaires. Why is that? I mean, how come Nancy Pelosi always makes the right stock picks and, is the best, stock trader on the planet? I mean, there's no corruption there. It's crazy.
And these people, like Nancy Pelosi, is the greatest example you can have. She's beaten the market every year that since she's gone into Congress. So she's gotten inside information. And if she's doing this, then everybody is doing it, presumably. Do your own research, but this seems to be what's going on. And by leveling the trade deficits that we're having, what Trump is doing is he's lowering prices domestically. We have to bring all of our no more imports, exports. We're going to build in this country. That NAFTA the 2000 Chinese American Trade Pact or Act or whatever it was called. All of We used to have normal manufacturing. It was very normal to work in a manufacturing factory operation, whatever, clock in, clock out, and you could have a family with a single home and a car and a wife that didn't work. That was the American dream. Well, that dream ended when we sent all the jobs overseas. And
Yeah.
and that's what the issue is. We need to bring them back.
Yeah,
The
because in like 2000, around the year 2000, factories in America started shutting down and moving their jobs overseas to like Mexico, to China, and all the production overseas. And these families and parents. My dad was affected. He worked in a factory. I'm not going to name the company, and that factory shut down and moved overseas. And he lost his job after working there for 17 years, and he had to find another job. So that's the thing we're dealing with here, and most people don't realize that is, Trump is trying to incentivize companies to reopen factories in America and take them out of the hands of these overseas nations, which is perpetuating slave labor. Because I mean, you're buying Jordans, but they're being made in Vietnam by toddlers for pennies on the dollar.
I think they make 3 cents a day.
Yeah.
It was the number that I found online, but the equivalent of that. And yeah, they have child labor, and people are the Apple excuse me, factory is famous for having nets outside of it because people keep jumping out the windows. Like, I don't know if that's true, but that's what you hear. And yeah, the counter argument to bringing all the trade back into the U.S. is great. Now everything's going to be more expensive because it's U.S. made. Not if you have a system that works the way it's intended to work. And if you have external revenue coming in through these trades, things don't need to be more expensive. It's easier to get locally grown food than it is to have food that's grown in California, shipped over to China to be sprayed with chemicals, shipped back to California, and then distributed across the United States, which is how they do it, by the way. It's easier just to go to the local guy and pick up whatever he's charging. If we have money that works, we can afford it. If we have money that doesn't work, we can't afford it, right? So that's why we're seeing this overhaul of the entire system.
And the markets being down right now, that's just a symptom of the drastic change coming in. It's not going to be like, oh, Trump implements all these tariffs and all of a sudden the market just booms and shoots right up. No, that's not what happens. The market's reacting naturally towards this stuff. It's gonna sink, and it's gonna drop, and it's gonna feel like, oh man, everything is going crazy. But like that article said, and Paul said, only 8% of Americans actually own stocks. I mean, how many of you actually have stocks, especially stocks that pay dividends, and receive like thousands of dollars worth of dividends? That is only 8% of Americans out of all America, 352 million voting Americans, and that's just voting Americans in this country, are and only 8% of that are actually own stocks.
And yeah, so whose money is getting messed with? Like, I know my 401k went down in value, right? That's pretty much how everybody interacts with the market. Is they give you a bunch of mutual funds, maybe a little Apple, maybe a little BlackRock or Vanguard or whatever. You get your traditional ones, but for the most part, that's how America participates in the stock exchange, which means we really don't, because we can't touch that until until we're in our 60s anyway. And if anybody who has tried to use their 401k, roll it over, or reallocate your investments, it's very difficult to do so. It actually takes some time to kind of figure out how to go about doing it. And the average American isn't learning how to do that because they have all these other things in their life, that they're living their life and doing their thing. So who has time to reevaluate their stocks? It's my 401k, it's fine. People don't really think about it that actively. And that's because the richest people own all the stocks. Like it's the 99% own very, very, very little.
Yeah.
And when you start getting into these numbers of how many billionaires there are, how there's definitely trillionaires, but we're just like not allowed to talk to them. We the people, average retail investors, we have, even if you're a multi-millionaire relative to the real rich, wealthy people, we have little to nothing. So this this is what has happened due to our horrible economic policies from the 90s on, and especially in 2000 when the Chinese America 2000 Act went through. We also had 9/11 happen that in about 18 months later or wherever it was, which also caused an economic downturn. Now you have an excuse for why we lost $2.3 trillion, like Donald Rumsfeld famously said at the Pentagon on September 10th. There's a lot of reasons why this money was going down because they were switching things over then. And then we have this excuse of this horrible event to basically cover up for what they were switching our trade and the way we go about doing our trade with other countries. So this has to undo all of this, and that's just one example, but this has to undo all of that. So this is going to be a downward trend. Now, for the short term, the hope is what Trump wants the Federal Reserve to do is to cut rates. In May, there's going to be Jerome Powell is going to make an announcement whether or not the Fed is going to cut rates. For regular investors like us, if you're into crypto moves with the stock market. What we're hoping is that rates are cut, because when rates are cut, risk on assets are now a hot investment. So risk on assets, riskier assets like cryptocurrency, like stocks. People don't really buy gold when interest rates are low. That's what we want to see happen in May, is rates get cut. If that happens, you're going to have a V-shaped recovery, and then it's going to blow off to the moon, and we're going to be off to the races, and everybody's going to be really happy. And that's going to get supercharged by the tariffs bringing money in, and also United States manufacturing coming back to the United States.
Yeah. And how many people are actually, the real people that are going to get affected by this are the ones that are day traders, that, trade stocks every single day. They're the ones that are hurting. But how many of, you viewers are day traders? How many of you actually trade stocks and trade in hundreds and thousands of dollars every single day? Almost none. I don't do that. I don't day trade. I have a 9 to 5. I work a regular job. Paul works a regular job, and we have other things to do. We don't have millions of dollars in disposable money that we can just go around and trade in stocks to get extremely wealthy. Those are the people that are being affected by these tariffs right now. Those are the percents that are hurting. And right now, everyone, it seems like a lot of the left and a lot of uneducated folks are crying about those people and saying, "Oh, the stock market's tanking," but I mean, you really have no skin in the game. You don't know these people. You don't invest with these people. You're just hearing their complaints and saying, "Yeah, Trump's tanking the stock market," but it's all for your benefit. It's all for the long term. Don't focus on the short term. Don't focus on the issues of the market being down now, because it's not really affecting you. Things are going to get better in the long term. Those jobs are going to start coming back to America. People are going to be able to buy things cheaper in-house. I remember when I lived in Germany for 3 years, to buy American beer, the tax on it was like through the roof. Like I couldn't get a Bud Light. I mean, not that I wanted to. When you're in Germany, you're drinking German beer, but still, like if you wanted American beer, you'd pay a hefty tax on it. But it's the same. It's a situation. It's vice versa. So the goal in it all is basically to have these countries stop with their tariff. So because all these 182 countries have been imposing tariffs on the United States. So Trump goes out and says, "Hey, we're going to implement a 40 or 50% tariff on you." And, the hope is that these countries come back, you know what, let's get rid of our tariffs on America. And that opens up free trade, and no one's actually being suppressed here. And you can actually trade around the world without taxes. But for years, America has been, just taking everyone's shit and, just dealing with it. But now the Trump is turning the tables on that. So let's take a quick look at this video real quick.
So yesterday, everyone was so confused on how Trump came to that percentage of reciprocal tariffs that he charged to 185 countries. Because some of the numbers were crazy, like 50%. But after some people started doing the math, turns out might be a little bit more simple than we thought. Even the freaking White House account got the reader's added context tag. So it turns out that these percentages aren't foreign tariffs. They simply show how much more the US imports from a country than exports to it. So for example, if the US imports $100 billion of goods from a country, but only exports $60 billion to it, that trade deficit would be $40 billion. So the calculation that they used is the 100 billion minus 60 billion equals 40 billion, then 40 billion divided by 100 billion, and there you go, 40% tariffs charged to that country. Another couple of interesting points was the 10% tariffs charged to the McDonald's and Heard Islands, where only penguins live. Now, the speculation for this is that they've either done this because they're Australian territory, or the fact that people have started setting up shell companies on those islands. Also in his speech, Trump officially acknowledged Taiwan as a country. In reference to JD Vance, he said he's gaining a lot of confidence, isn't he? And then a couple of surprising countries that were spared from Trump's tariffs, which were there were only a few, were Russia and North Korea. You see, Trump says that he wants America to become self-reliant and drive businesses and manufacturing back to the country. But to do this, he not only has to change consumer habits to buy more American, but also make it make sense for corporations and factories to operate within America rather than abroad. Tariffs are his chosen way of trying to do this. But investors and the stock market absolutely hate it. In fact, the market tanked so hard that as of recording, we are only 1.3% away from having to halt all trading. Now, Trump's rebuttal to this is that if you want to make any long-term plans or change for the country, you can't keep on thinking about these short-term fluctuations of the stock market.
The stock market is up. That's good. It's down. That's bad. That's about how much the average person knows about the stock market, right? So, people who are seeing that, why are we so optimistic about what's going on is earlier we talked about this V-shaped recovery. Trump imposed tariffs the last time he was in office in 2017. What did the market do? It went straight down. The Fed cut rates. It went straight up. We had the strongest economy ever, and that only got derailed by by COVID, right? So, and that whole fiasco. So, this is a playbook that he's doing again. And like I said a moment ago, the tariffs are going to supercharge it. The no more income tax, which means people are going to spend more of their money, is going to supercharge it. He's going to, he's going to make things so much better in the long term that we have to wait and see. And in the meantime, they're still doing a million and one other things, and a lot of them we've covered on our pod a couple of times. But this is a good thing. We're moving in the right direction. The people who are screaming the most are the ones who, in all likelihood, own or at least have a great deal of influence on the media anyway. And now all of these different, and as the Department of Government Efficiency continues to go through the government and comb through it to see what they've been up to, I wanted to read this post from ACSET online. Medicare, USAID, Department of Energy, Education, Treasury, Social Security, and so on, are about as corrupt as they can possibly be. One of the advantages of letting this play out in public is that at this point, only those who have no choice but to defend the corruption are doing so, and they will glow forever. It's not getting worse. It's just beginning. We are just beginning to see the depths of the corruption. There has been no accountability except for those who were stupid enough to get caught by a system that doesn't want to catch them. That's about to change. So, people who are super, pro Trump and are starting to freak out. Why isn't Trump arrested everybody? Why isn't this happen? Why isn't that happen? Listen, this has to take time to play out. And if you are building your case on how to disrupt and, remove the most corrupt government that the world has ever seen, it's going to take time, and you're going to have to actually research and find out what they've been up to. And that's what we're seeing right now. And an evidence of that is the way that the mainstream media, these very, rich, well-to-do people who are who are defending this behavior, defending the fraud, waste, and abuse that our tax dollars have been going towards and been, absolutely wasted on. Those are the people that, in all likelihood, are on the take, or their friends are getting that money, right? In some way, or something they're interested in is getting their money. They don't care about you and me. They just care about themselves and their own interests. So those who scream the loudest have the most to hide. And that would be something that you take away from this podcast. Those who scream the loudest have the most to hide.
Yeah. So just remember that that nothing that Trump's doing right now he wouldn't be allowed to do it if the deep state didn't want him to. Like there's people that are behind the scenes controlling him. We wholeheartedly believe that they're allowing Trump to do this because they would find one way or another to stop him. You could see that they knew he was planning on this, doing stuff like this, so they tried to take him out a couple of times before. But the fact that he's in office doesn't make him safe. If they didn't want this to happen, it wouldn't happen. And overall, the main author of the world and everything is God. And if God didn't want this to happen, he would not allow this to happen. So just remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that people are saying is like, oh, they haven't released the Epstein list and this sort of stuff. They haven't, done this, where the arrests. Well, if you have the Epstein list, and let's just say even one member of Congress is on it, what if it's half of them, or whoever it is? Maybe there's 10 different Epsteins and 10 different lists. I don't know. But if you have leverage over them to have this play out legally, and you got to do what you got to do, I'm totally fine with that. If it all ends up, fixing the way that the government, has been totally corrupted. And another thing is, even if you, let's say that that's not the case. Let's say you don't have any leverage on them at all. You want your enemy to be themselves. And if they are under a lot of pressure and stress, they will make a mistake eventually, and they'll make a misstep, and you can, take them out. So this is what we're waiting for is, we're playing the long game economically. We're playing the long game with getting rid of these criminals entrenched in our government and the NGOs and all these horrible things, and we're going to fix the money as well.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to bring up was BYD, the Chinese battery company. They're actually a car company. Scroll up a little bit. So yeah, BYD, I did a paper on them in college. They were my company that I had to write a paper explaining, their strategy and everything. So what's going on with them? Take a quick look at this video real quick.
This might be the best city I've ever seen. This is Chongqing in China, where trains go through apartment buildings, buildings are stacked on top of buildings, and also this beautiful nightlife. So after seeing all of this, one question: is this futuristic city better than the world famous New York City?
I did that paper, and the company was just a little bit in China, but they expanded this huge area, basically cover the whole country with high-speed light rails, and they supply batteries for transit, mass transit, and now they're basically empowering these car companies. And these cars, you can get a car that's fully electric, cheaper than a Tesla. Like a Tesla would be like 100K, and this car would be like $30,000 from these Chinese companies. And what that'll do is that'll price out normal American car buyer companies. So I mean, it's not like you can't sell an American car in China. You can, but it'd be near impossible. Trump said, you try to go and try and sell any of your products in China or Japan, that's that it's not like it's illegal, but it's damn near impossible. So with BYD, what they're doing is if their cars came over to America, it would completely cripple the American automotive industry, and you wouldn't be able to do anything with that. So just be careful, and pay attention to that.
And why that's important is China is going to do a 34% retaliatory tariff on the United States. So if they are getting, so it's going to be nearly impossible for us to sell to them. And they want to continue to sell these ultra cheap cars to us, which will cripple our economy even farther and cripple our manufacturing. This is economic warfare. And one of the reasons why you need American-made products is for this reason, not just economically, but overall. Like, what happens if it goes untethered and you don't have any industry whatsoever within your country? For centuries, the Byzantine navy was the best in the world. They invented Greek fire. They rescued Constantinople from ruin again and again. Then they outsourced their shipbuilding to the Venetians. Within 30 years, they were conquered by the Venetians. So we don't want to get conquered by China in the next 30 years, right? What we want is to have American industry work for Americans. And if you get this, if they can make a $100,000 car for $30,000, that's going to be the only cars on the road. And every car is going to be
about how China is registered on the UN as a third world country, but it's really not.
Yeah, there's still there's for the people who pay into NATO, they have different like tiers of how much you have to contribute, and like fully developed countries like the US and France and London, we have to Germany, the biggest economies have to pay the most. I don't know even what we're paying for. Like, I hope we get out of it anyway, but China since the 1970s has been categorized as a developing nation, and China's economy is the second largest in the world. So the fact that they still get this unfair treatment just shows that it's another tax, money, siphon from the U.S. economy, where we have to pay them more and more money. And China, who has a rip-roaring economy, they are a developed nation. There's still parts of China that are totally undeveloped, but for the most part, they have an economy the size that would make them fully developed nation economically.
There's parts of the United States that are still underdeveloped. Look at the Amish.
Yeah, look at East Tennessee.
Yeah, still, it's crazy that based off of that video I just showed you, you see China and they're living in future. They're living in the year 2030 already, and America, we're still far behind compared to them, and yet they're considered a third world country. They're not a third world country. I'm from Guyana. That's a third world country.
Yeah, I'm from Baltimore. That's a third world country. All right. Yeah. So now, one of the catalysts of growth that we're anticipating for the economy as it makes its V-shaped recovery, once rates are cut, once this tariff war settles itself down, once our taxes are cut, there's going to be a huge influx into crypto. It was actually kind of amazing because the stock market lost I don't remember what it was, but let's say it was like $4 trillion or some crazy number. I don't remember what it was, but I know it went down really, really far. Yeah. Like a lot of money went into the crypto sphere. Like everything in the crypto markets pumped up price wise, like in the past couple of weeks. It's actually kind of amazing. And more evidence of a healthy crypto environment is Binance, which is a major exchange that has their own news article here, which I love this title. It says, "A hope for the XRP ETF in 2025. Binance predicts price will reach $600."
Yeah.
Citing the increased adoption by large institutions and the clear regulatory potential, this prediction has attracted the interest of crypto investors, especially as discussions around the XRP ETF continues to gain attention. Coinbase is filing for a XRP ETF, and
they just approved the XRP future. If you want to pull up that article, you have that.
I don't have it here, but
okay.
they did just approve the futures. So more investment exposure capabilities for XRP, and the tides are like this is the way I put it. And again, always do your own research, but like sometimes I feel like when I get really passionate about something, there has to be a why behind it. Like, yeah, there's but I don't think when I look at stuff like this, I have this thesis that says, I think the XRP is going to be the future of the financial system. This is the way that money is going to work. It's going to be the undergirdings of, of money in the future. Everything that I have been seeing has been supporting the thesis. I haven't seen anything antithetical, like against the thesis, my idea that XRP is going to be the future, world reserve currency. This has nothing to do with that per se, but this is more evidence of adoption, more evidence of positive, momentum in the XRP ecosystem and the Ripple ecosystem. There are 17 XRP ETFs in total. If we got out of the lawsuit, which still isn't over, by the way, but if we got out of the lawsuit with one ETF, we would be stoked. There are 17. That means there's 17 different mega financial institutions that have to buy XRP, hold it, and allow people to invest in an exchange traded fund. So the supply of XRP is going as soon as there's regulatory clarity and banks are allowed to buy it, it's going to go like that. So that's why they have these prices like $600 XRP, because they're saying, well, if the lawsuit ends in 2 months and it's officially off the SEC books, and the CFTC says you're good, the SEC says you're good, the FinCEN says you're good, insurance companies say you're good, you can move a very, very large portion of the financial system into the crypto, integrate crypto into that world. And that's where all this is coming from. This doesn't have anything to do with, XRP being a cross-border remittance. This is just people wanting just to hold it, $600 just for the privilege of having it in an account somewhere.
Yeah. So, with all that being said, like, back on St. Patrick's Day or the day after, Brad Garlinghouse came out and said that the case was over. We're just waiting for the SEC to officially acknowledge that, which could happen in May. And realistically, we could see prices like this $600 XRP. And then if you own over 1,000 XRP, you're sitting pretty with that kind of a price. Especially if you have at least over 10,000 XRP, you're definitely sitting pretty, with the $600 XRP price. So, it's realistically possible. And this is Binance predicting this for 2025, the year that we're currently in. And this is just in the beginning of Trump's term. This is just the start of all the, stuff that he's doing right now with the economy. The market's currently reacting to everything going on with these tariffs, but XRP is actually holding strong over $2. It dipped down a little bit to like $1.99, but it bounced right back up to $2. So, I mean, I bought a little bit of the dip. I'm at about like 205. So,
nice. I threw $100 in.
Yeah, I threw $100 in too. So, but just keep stocking up right now. You guys. It's a really good opportunity to create life-changing money, and you can really, secure your family's future, and not just for you and your children, but for your children's children if you invest smart and right now. Because when the markets are red and everything is in red right now, that's when it's time to buy. Warren Buffett says when there's blood in the streets, that's when you buy, not when everything's green and everybody's happy. So, but the average person doesn't have money to throw out when they're suffering. They don't think about, oh, I'm going to buy some crypto. They don't think about things like that. They're not going to be like, oh man, I'm really having trouble feeding my family this week. Let me throw $20 into some XRP here. That's just not realistically the case. So a lot of people are going to get left, and there's only a small percentage. There's 4 million people across the whole entire world that hold the XRP, and that's most of those wallets are duplicates. Most of those wallets are, just people moving. I know I have more than one wallet, so I have a little bit of XRP here and a little bit of XRP there. So, that counts in part of that 4 million. So when this big shift comes and you see a $600 XRP price, they're going to be new millionaires, new billionaires. And then in 2030, when the price hits $10,000, you'll see new trillionaires. And what was also possible is Ripple gifting Donald Trump and the U.S. government some of their XRP escrow. That's also a real possibility as well. So
Yeah, and we've talked about that in some of our previous videos. That it could be that there, because I found it out. You can give, like, there's weird laws when it comes to like gifting or like paying the White House, because like anybody can go to the White House and like give them money. Like, you can, if you want to, there's
yeah,
laws about that sort of thing, right?
yeah,
And
if you have XRP and you want to gift it to the White House now, you can.
right there, right, but there's nothing like illegal about it. People, you can do that, and there's been times where there's been like presidential gifts and these sort of things. Um, but it is a real possibility that they could have just bequeathed the government, like, I don't know, 33 billion XRP, and then Ripple still has over 10 billion, so they're still the number one XRP private XRP holder. And then if all Trump has to do is peg XRP to gold, the price of gold, and then boom, we're at $3,000 as soon as he signs an executive order. That's in the cards too. That could happen at any time. I don't think anything will happen until the lawsuit is officially over. But these are the things we're on the lookout for. And do your own research, as we always say. But there's as I keep looking for things that disprove my idea that XRP is going to be the world reserve currency, and I just keep finding more and more reasons to be bullish and be excited about where we're headed.
If anything, our general audience is not bullish enough. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I'm at the point where, like, I say I have enough XRP, but I still keep buying every time the price dips. But I just recently started buying HBAR, and that's another cryptocurrency that's an American-based currency that has utility, and you could see that price rise as XRP rises as well. So and that's a little more affordable right now. It's at 15 cents. It's living around like 14, 15, 16, 17 cents. So you can accumulate more of that on the cheaper side. $20 will actually stretch you a long way with that. And if you see a $100 H bar, you'd be sitting pretty good.
They just signed a deal with Google. Yeah, they're very bullish on HBAR. They're actually a better, like a faster. They have faster tech than Ripple, than XRP does. Excuse me. But it's like they're a hash graph, which I'm not a tech expert, but I just know it's different than a blockchain. And so, but they technically are faster and more eco-friendly than XRP. XRP is one of the fastest and one of the most eco-friendly. So it's just they already have better technology than the best technology, the preferred technology of of the banks, which is XRP. But the thing about Hedera is they don't have the relationships that Ripple has, and if Ripple has all the XRP, they have former treasurer on their board of directors. They have all these different very high, very powerful people, movers and shakers in the financial world. And you need somebody to walk into a boardroom and have a firm handshake, and those are the people that are on the board at Ripple. Hedera has some really good people too. Their president of their company was seen with Brad Garlinghouse at the White House for a crypto dinner back in January of this year. So he's one of the HBAR is definitely a big play. Get it while you can, but not financial advice, do your own research. But again, I'm looking for reasons why they wouldn't use it, but I keep finding reasons why they would. So it's really, it's tough to predict the future. You never know what's going to happen, but it looks like these technologies are what they're going to use to, overhaul the financial system. And they have to fix the mechanism of trade, which is what we're seeing now, which is, with the stock market.
Yeah, XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR. There's ADA, Cardano. Just do your research, look into those. But there's a lot out there. The whole financial system is going to be completely reshaped. What's going on right now with the trades and everything, it's definitely looks like everything's going to be tokenized and transitioned. So you're moving into a new financial economic system. So the people that pay attention to these videos, will take this to heart and continue to build their bags. don't let the fear and the uncertainty get in your way. Don't be emotional. Just continue to invest and hold, because eventually we're going to see prices like this $600 XRP. We're going to see a $10,000 XRP. You know, I have a sign on my desk at work that says one day there's going to be a $10,000 XRP soon. And, you know, I wholeheartedly believe that. So just, you know, when you're feeling down in the dumps, you know, look at stuff like that and, you know, just stay up with it. But we'll call that an episode for today. You know, I got a lot of stuff going on in the background right now, but we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, Christ is King. Stay blessed. I'm Jarrell Prasad signing out.
And I'm Paul Campbell signing out.